The policeman on the beat moved up the avenue impressively. His impressiveness was habitual and not for show, for spectators were few. The time was barely 10 o'clock at night, but because of the chilly gusts of wind with the taste of rain in them, there were few people on the streets. The officer was an impressive guardian of the peace. He walked down the street twirling his club, checking his doors were securely locked, and kept a wonderful eye and watchful over the area. The Pink City was one of that which kept early hours. Now and then you might see the lights of a chemist or one of an all-night lunch counter, but the majority of the stores belonged to the business places that had long since been closed. When about the midway of a certain block, the policeman suddenly slowed his walk. In the doorway of the darkened hardware store stood a man leaning against the wall. The policeman shone his torch in the direction of the man. The light showed a pale, square-jawed man with keen eyes, and a little white scar near his right eyebrow. His scarf pin was a large diamond, artist said as the policeman walked up to him. The man spoke up quickly. "It's all right, officer," he said reassuringly. "I'm just waiting for a friend. It's an apartment made 20 years ago. Sounds a little funny to you, doesn't it? Well, I will explain if you hadn't like to make certain at all straight. About that long ago there used to be a restaurant where this store stands. Big Joy Brothers Restaurant. Until 5 years ago," said the policeman. "It was torn down then." 20 years ago, tonight," said the man. "I dined here at Big Joe Brady's with Jimmy Wells, my best pal, and the finest chip in the world. He and I were raised here in New York, just like two brothers together. I was 18 and Jimmy was 20. The next morning I was to start for the West to make my fortune. You couldn't have dragged Jimmy out of New York. He thought it would be the only place on the earth where we agreed that night that we would meet ever here again exactly 20 years from that day and time, no matter what conditions might be or from what distance we might have to come. We figured that in 20 years each of us ought to have our destiny worked out and our fortunes made, whatever they were being to be done." "It sounds pretty interesting," said the policeman. "Rather a long time between meets, though it seems to me. Haven't you heard from your friends since you left?" "Well, yes, for a time we corresponded," said the other. "But after a year or two we lost the track of each other. You see, the West is a pretty big place and I kept hustling around in it pretty liberally, but I knew Jimmy will never meet. He's surely going to meet me here if he's alive, for he's always the truest and staunchest of old chap in the world. He will never forget. I'm 1,000 miles to stand in this door tonight, and it's worth it my old partner turns up." The waiting man pulled out a handsome watch. The leads of the watch were still with small diamonds. 3 minutes to 10, he announced. It was exactly 10 o'clock when we parted here at the restaurant. "Did pretty well out in the West, didn't you?" asked the policeman. "You bet. I hope Jimmy has turned up as well. He was a kind brother, the good fellow as he was. I have never had to compete with some other of the sharpest guy and get my pile. Man gets in groove in New York. It takes the West to put a razor on him." The policeman twirled his club and took a step or two. "I'll be on my way. Hope your friend comes around all right. Going to call time on sharp?" "I should say not," said the other. "I'll give him half an hour at least. If Jimmy is alive on the earth, he will be here by that time. So long, official." "Good night, sir," said the policeman. passing on along his bed, trying doors as he went. There was now a funny, cold drizzle falling, and the wind had risen from its uncertain paths into a steady blow. The few pedestrians, as stirring their quarter, hurried dismally and silently along with the coach collars turned high and pocketed hands, and in the door of the harrow stood the man who had come 1,000 miles to peel and fill the appointment uncertain, almost absurdity. When the friend of his youth watched the street and waited, about 20 minutes he waited, and then a tall man in a long overcoat and collar turned up to his ears, hurried across from the opposite side of the street. He went directly to the waiting man. "Is that you, Bob?" he asked doubtfully. "Is that you, Jimmy Wills?" cried the man in the door. "Bless my heart!" exclaimed the new arrival, grasping both others. "It's Bob! Serious fate! I was certain I had found you here if you were still in existence. Well, 20 years is a long time. The old restaurant is gone, Bob. I wish it had lasted so we could have another dinner there. How was the West treated you, the old man?" "Bully, it has given me everything it had asked it for. You have changed lots, Jimmy. I never thought you were so tall by 2 or 3 inches." "Oh, I grew a bit after I was 20. Do well in New York, Jimmy?" "Moderately. I have a position in one of the city departments." "Come on, Bob. We will go round to a place and I know of, and have a good talk and a long talks about the old times." The two men started up the street arm to arm. The man from the West had egotism, enlarged by success, was beginning to outline the history of his career. The other, submerged in his overcoat, listened with interest. At the corner stood a drugstore brilliant with electric lights. When they came into the glare of each of them and turned simultaneously gaze upon other's face, the man from the West stopped suddenly, releasing his arm. "You are not Jimmy Wills," he snapped. 20 years is a long time, but not enough to change a man's nose from a Roman to a pug. It sometimes change a good man into a bad one," said the tall man. "You have been under arrest for 10 minutes, Silky Bob. The police department at Chicago that is investigating you tipped us off that you had been here and asked us to arrest you. Going quietly, are you? That's sensible. Now, before we go on to the stations, here's a note I was asked to hand you. You may read it here in the window. It's from the patrolman Wells." There was a rather short note handed by him. "Bob, I was at an appointed place on time. When I saw your face in the torchlight, I saw it was the face of the man wanted in Chicago. Somehow I couldn't do it myself, so I went around and caught a plainclothes man to do the job. Jimmy." The policeman on the beat moved up the avenue impressively. The impressiveness was habitual and not for show.